The rain slid down the curved glass of the Narration 3 Memorial Dome as Captain Elias Ward knelt before a grave that held nothing but his grief. His breath trembled as he traced his fingertips across the carved name of the daughter he believed died 12 years ago. Mira Ward, the hybrid child he could not protect. He whispered apologies into the silence, unaware that above him, pressed against the steel rafters with unnatural stillness, Mira watched him, alive and torn between instinct and longing. In the shadows, her hybrid senses detected approaching danger. Elias was mourning a death that never happened, and enemies were closing in. If you believe justice should reach even the darkest corners of the galaxy, where institutions hide their crimes behind cold laws, then join us. Subscribe now, because stories like this remind us that humanity's greatest power isn't strength or technology, but the courage to protect those we love. The rain tapped lightly against the memorial dome as Captain Elias Ward approached the grave once again. Every year he came here, and every year the walk felt heavier. The dome's artificial sky shimmered through the glass above him, but Elias barely noticed the shifting light. His attention belonged entirely to the gray stone marker ahead of him. It bore a name that still hollowed him out whenever he read it. Mira Ward. His daughter. His failure. His lingering wound that time refused to soften. He knelt before the headstone, resting one gloved hand on the cold surface. The polished stone reflected a faint, distorted outline of his face, older now, more worn, carved by years that offered no forgiveness. He bowed his head, letting out a slow exhale. "I'm here again, sweetheart," he murmured. "I never know what to say that doesn't sound like an apology." The dome around him remained silent, save for the rainfall sliding down the curved structure. The sound had always calmed him when Mira was young. She used to enjoy the rain, even though she sensed the world differently than human children. She would listen not to the tapping but to the vibrations, tilting her head as she absorbed patterns he could never detect. Remembering that small habit squeezed his chest. "I hope you knew how much I loved you," he whispered. "Even when I couldn't protect you." He swallowed, forcing down the rising ache. 12 years ago, the Coalition took Mira away under the guise of humane termination. She was a hybrid child, half human, half Vrakathi, born during a period when fear of combined species research had reached dangerous levels. When the public learned the hybrid children had enhanced abilities, panic spread. Governments moved fast. Too fast. Elias had tried to intervene, but he was a single officer against a system eager to erase mistakes rather than confront them. He brushed the surface of the stone. "I should have fought harder. I should have—" He stopped himself. Regret only repeated the same truth. He had failed. Unaware of the figure clinging to the rafters high above him, he continued speaking. Mira watched him with senses far sharper than any human's. Her faintly luminescent eyes tracked every movement, the rise and fall of his shoulders, the subtle tremor in his exhale. She felt the vibrations in the floor through her limbs, felt the resonance of his grief as if it were a physical pulse. Her father had returned again. He always returned. She shifted her weight slightly, though the movement was nearly imperceptible. A combination of instinct and longing tugged at her. Her human side wanted to descend and speak to him. Her alien side urged silence, stillness, survival. For years she had balanced between those instincts, but here, watching him in pain, her resolve weakened. Below, Elias lifted his eyes. "Mira," he said quietly, "they told me your last moments were peaceful. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know anything anymore." His voice cracked at the edges. Mira felt every fracture of it. He stood slowly, brushing raindrops from his jacket. He looked older, thinner. His once broad shoulders slumped with the weight of too many unanswered questions. The dome lights dimmed gradually as the artificial day cycle shifted toward simulated dusk. "I don't stay long," he said. "I don't want to pretend I'm healing. But I do want you to know. I never stopped being your father." He paused, collecting himself. "Wherever you are, if anything of you still exists, I hope you weren't afraid." Myra's throat tightened. She remembered being taken. She remembered metal restraints, the cold facility lights, the ache of forced separation. She remembered calling out for him until her voice broke. Fear had been her earliest memory of that place. But she couldn't reveal herself now. If she did, he would be marked, hunted, interrogated. Director Verne had never forgotten her. He would exploit anyone connected to her. Elias stepped back from the grave, exhaling slowly. "I'll come again next year," he said softly. "Maybe one day the guilt will fade. But I doubt it." He turned to leave. That was when Mira sensed it. A faint buzz of electromagnetic static trembled across the dome structure. Her head snapped toward the far wall, where a small drone hovered near the ceiling. Its scanning lens glowed pale blue, rotating in slow arcs. Hybrid detection signature. The Coalition had upgraded their surveillance. Myra's pulse quickened. If the drone traced any residual energy from her presence, it would alert Verne immediately. She pressed herself tighter against the metal beams, skin shifting hue to blend with the structure. Her breath slowed. But the drone wasn't focused on her. It was focused on Elias. It scanned him from head to toe, recording his biometrics. His yearly visits had triggered enough anomalies for Verne to take interest. Mira clenched her jaw. She knew what the scan meant. They believed Elias might be hiding something. Or someone. Her father walked silently toward the exit, unaware of the danger gathering around him. The drone tracked him until he reached the corridor outside the dome. Myra's grip tightened on the beam. She wanted to scream a warning. Her throat formed the beginning of the word. "Father." Barely audible, just a breath, but full of fear. The drone's lens brightened. Myra's instincts surged. She launched herself away from the rafters, disappearing into the shadows before the machine could shift its sensor pattern toward her last position. She could not let it detect her. But she also could not let it target her father. Below, Elias paused, sensing something, intuition, perhaps, but continued walking, unaware. Mira watched him leave, her heart pounding with conflict. Tonight, she realized, the past was awakening. And the hunt was beginning again. Elias walked through the dim corridor outside the memorial dome, unaware of the silent drone drifting behind him like a mechanical shadow. The narrow passage curved gently along the structure's perimeter, lit by strips of weak amber lights that flickered with age. His boots echoed softly on the metal flooring. Normally, the quiet soothed him, but tonight, a tension he couldn't name followed close behind. He paused and glanced over his shoulder. Nothing. Just an empty corridor and the hollow hum of the dome's power regulators. Yet something in his gut tightened. Years of military service had sharpened instincts that rarely failed him. He took a steady breath, trying to shake off the unease. "I'm imagining things," he muttered. Grief does strange things to the mind. But he didn't fully believe that. High above, Mira clung to the outer support structure of the dome, her limbs tense and her senses fully engaged. She tracked the drone's movements by the faint electronic vibrations traveling through the metal beams. Its direction pattern had changed after scanning Elias, confirmation that it had detected something noteworthy. The realization chilled her. Director Verne would see the data immediately. He would not dismiss it. He would follow the pattern back to Elias. Mira shifted position, keeping pace above her father as he walked. She maintained distance, trying to decide how close was safe. Every movement had consequences now. Down below, Elias attempted to steady his breathing. He didn't like the sensation spreading through his nerves. It reminded him of old missions, silent buildings, unseen threats, the tension preceding an ambush. But this was a graveyard dome. A place of mourning. Not danger. Unless, he thought, the Coalition still watched families of hybrid children. He clenched his jaw. That thought was unwelcome, but not unrealistic. A faint metallic click echoed from behind him. Elias froze. His hand drifted toward the side of his jacket, where a concealed pocket once held a service pistol. Old habits. His fingers brushed only fabric. He hadn't carried a weapon in 12 years. Civilian life didn't permit such things. He turned slightly, scanning the corridor. Still nothing. But the sound had been real. Above him, Mira detected more than the click. She sensed atmospheric displacement, air shifting slightly as multiple objects approached from the direction of the dome's western access gate. Not drones. Footsteps. Heavily padded, controlled, and deliberate. Coalition capture units. Vern had moved faster than she expected. 4 figures in dark tactical suits emerged from the far end of the corridor. Elias stiffened when he saw them. The suits were unmistakable: reinforced armor plating, matte helmets with visor screens capable of reading biometrics, and compact shock rifles held with disciplined precision. They advanced with the quiet confidence of soldiers who believed their mission simple. "Captain Elias Ward," the lead officer announced. "You are required for questioning regarding your presence at this facility." Elias felt cold pressure settle in his chest. "Questioning? About what?" "That information will be provided at headquarters," the officer replied. His voice was filtered by the helmet, flattening all emotion. "Please comply." Elias slowly raised his hands. "I haven't done anything." "That will be determined." The other 3 soldiers spread out, blocking retreat paths. Elias recognized the maneuver. They weren't inviting him for conversation. They were securing a target. Above, Myra's pulse quickened. She lowered herself silently onto an overhead platform, eyes narrowing. The soldiers' stances revealed everything: the angle of their rifles, the synchronized steps, the lack of hesitation. They weren't authorized for discussion. They were authorized for extraction. If they took Elias, they would interrogate him until he broke. Mira had survived their methods. A human like her father would not. The thought pushed her closer to the edge. Elias's voice wavered as he tried to maintain composure. "Listen, I'm a civilian engineer now. I maintain atmospheric stabilizers. I don't have any connection to classified operations anymore. That is not what our data suggests." "What data?" Elias demanded. The lead officer stepped forward. "Your biometric pattern was flagged. Your repeated visits to this site have raised concern." Elias blinked. "Concern? About a grave visit?" "We do not answer questions," the officer said firmly. "We escort. You follow." Elias took a step back. 3 rifles clicked louder this time. Mira gripped the metal rail, weighing her options. Attacking a coalition unit meant exposing herself. Saving Elias meant destroying her anonymity. But letting them take him was not an option. Her father's voice reached her, low but trembling. "I don't want trouble. But you're making a mistake." "No," the officer replied. "You made the mistake." Elias tensed. The soldiers advanced. Mira dropped. She landed silently on a support beam halfway down, clinging with inhuman ease. Her skin shifted color, adapting to the dim corridor lighting. She moved with precision, descending another few meters until the soldiers were directly beneath her. The lead officer reached out to seize Elias's arm. Elias jerked back, but a second soldier cut off the escape route. Mira inhaled sharply. Her instincts exploded in urgency. Enough hiding. She launched herself downward. A flash of motion streaked through the corridor. The nearest soldier barely registered a blur before Mira struck him across the helmet with a force that sent him crashing into the wall. Sparks burst from the shattered visor. The other soldiers whipped around. "What was—" Mira landed between them and Elias, low and poised, her bioluminescent eyes flaring with defensive heat. Her limbs bent with alien precision as she raised her head slowly. The soldiers hesitated, stunned. "Hybrid," one shouted. Myra's voice, when it came, trembled with restrained emotion. "Stay away from him." Elias stared in disbelief. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. He saw the impossible, her silhouette, her familiar shape, the faint glow of her eyes. "Mira," he whispered, barely breathing. But she could not answer him. Not yet. The soldiers recovered quickly. "Neutralize the hybrid," the leader commanded. Rifles lifted. Myra's muscles tightened. She spoke only one word, barely audible but resolute. "No." She moved before the first shot fired. Her limbs were a blur, dodging, striking, disarming with precision bred from survival and enhanced senses. Shock rifles clattered across the floor. Sparks tore through the air. Elias stumbled back, shielding himself from stray blasts. The corridor erupted in brief violence, then fell into sudden stillness. 3 soldiers lay incapacitated. The 4th dragged himself backward, stunned, before collapsing. Mira rose slowly, breathing hard. Only then did she turn to face Elias fully. The grief, the longing, the years of silence, all reflected in her trembling gaze. Elias's voice cracked. "Mira, how are you alive?" Her eyes softened. "Father," she whispered, "we don't have time. They'll send more." But the shock in his expression told her that escaping would be the least difficult part of what came next. The corridor felt unnaturally still after the brief chaos, as if the air itself paused to absorb what had just happened. Elias stood frozen, staring at the figure before him, a figure he had mourned for 12 years. Myra's breathing steadied, though her posture remained tense, alert for any further threats. Her skin tone slowly shifted back to its natural pale shimmer, faintly luminous along the edges. Her eyes, those strange, beautiful hybrid eyes, held a fear that was not directed at the soldiers. It was directed at him. Elias took a hesitant step forward. His voice cracked with disbelief. "Mira, this isn't possible." She lowered her gaze. "I didn't want you to see me like this." He shook his head, unable to contain the rush of emotion sweeping through him. "You're alive. That's all that matters." He reached out, then stopped himself, suddenly uncertain. She looked different, taller, sharper, bearing the marks of someone who had lived in shadows too long. Mira noticed his hesitation. "You can touch me," she whispered softly. "I'm real." He closed the distance and placed a trembling hand against her shoulder. Her skin felt warm, solid, achingly familiar. Emotion surged through him so forcefully he almost collapsed. "They told me you died," he breathed. "They told me they lied," she said. Her voice held no anger, only truth hardened by memory. "They took us to facilities. They studied us. They wanted to see how far hybrid evolution could go." Elias's expression darkened. "I tried to stop them. I fought everyone above me. They shut every door." "I know," she said quietly. "I heard your voice once. Through a wall. You were demanding to see me. They sedated me before you could." He stared at her, shaken. "I thought I imagined that. I thought my mind created false hope." "It wasn't hope," she said. "It was the last time I heard you before they moved the surviving hybrids off-world." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. Surviving hybrids. There were others? "Many," she replied, scanning the corridor for movement. "Some stronger. Some weaker. Some never made it." She paused. "I was the one they considered promising." He felt sick. Promising for what? "For what they called tactical evolution," she said. "Enhanced perception. Amplified reflexes. Adaptive camouflage. They wanted living weapons they could control." Her jaw tightened. "But we developed faster than they expected. Too fast. So they classified us as unstable. Dangerous. Valuable." Elias clenched his fists. Every sentence pressed deeper into wounds he thought had scarred over long ago. Who was behind all of this? "Director Verne," Mira said. The name cut through the air like a shard of glass. He didn't want the hybrids destroyed. He wanted the strongest contained for further development. Elias exhaled sharply. "I always suspected his involvement. No one else had that much authority." "He still hunts us," she said. "He believes we are unpredictable, that we threaten the balance between species. But he also thinks we could stabilize the coalition if we're controlled." "You're not something to control," Elias said fiercely. "You're my daughter." Her eyes softened. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply look at him, not as a hidden fugitive watching from shadows, but as a daughter gazing at the man who raised her. The moment was brief, but it was something she had imagined for years. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Mira stiffened instantly. "Reinforcements," she said. "We have minutes at most." Elias nodded, falling back into practiced readiness. "There's a service tunnel 2 levels down. We can lose them there." "No," she replied. "They'll seal the exits. We need to move above the grid." She gestured upward. "It's where they least expect a human to go." He gave her a tight look. "I'm not exactly as agile as you." Her lips curved faintly. "I'll help." They moved quickly through the corridor, weaving around fallen soldiers. Mira paused briefly beside one and retrieved a small security badge. "We'll need this," she said. Elias swallowed the unease that rose when she touched the armored body. Survival required choices neither of them preferred. As they reached an access ladder leading to the higher maintenance levels, Elias climbed carefully. Mira stayed below, monitoring for pursuit. His muscles strained, and used to the steep vertical ascent, but determination pushed him onward. He had lost Mira once. He refused to lose her again. When he reached the upper platform, Mira climbed behind him with fluid ease. Elias watched her movement, precise, swift, silent. The alien half of her had grown stronger over the years, but it didn't overshadow her humanity. Instead, it shaped her into something extraordinary. They navigated the narrow walkway overlooking the corridor network. Voices echoed from below as incoming troops swept the lower sector. Mira gestured for silence. She crouched near a grated panel and listened through the vibrations. "Strike Unit 8 reporting. 4 operatives down. Suspected hybrid involvement. Target Elias Ward still in vicinity." Elias felt Myra's hand brush his arm. A subtle gesture, but grounding. Another voice spoke. Deeper. Colder. "Vern. Secure the perimeter," he ordered. "Ward is leverage. The hybrid will reveal herself to protect him." Elias felt heat rise in his chest. "He's using me." "He always would," Mira whispered. "He knows hybrids bond strongly. He knows what I would do." Elias looked at her. "We're getting off this planet. Both of us." She hesitated. Running won't stop him. "No," he agreed. "But staying will kill us." Myra's gaze drifted toward the distant lights of Narration 3's skyline. "There are others like me out there," she said. "If Vern finds me, he finds them." "Then we get to them first," Elias said. His voice carried a steady determination that surprised even him. "But we must survive the night." Mira studied him with quiet intensity. "I didn't think you would choose this." Elias gave a tired half-smile. "I already lost you once. I'm not doing it again." For the first time, Myra's expression reflected a fragile hope. "Father," she said softly, "I'm glad you found me. But you must understand." Before she could finish, the ceiling panels above them reverberated. Lights flickered. A drop pod tore through the outer maintenance hatch, slamming into a support beam. Heavy armor units began deploying. Myra's eyes sharpened. "They're here." Elias's heartbeat thudded in his ears. "Where do we go?" She took his hand, grip firm and resolute. "Forward," she said. "And no matter what happens, you stay behind me." The drop pod's metal shell cracked open like a ruptured insect carapace, spilling out armored coalition units onto the maintenance platform. Their boots struck the steel with practiced rhythm, rifles raised, visors scanning. Mira pulled Elias behind a support column just as a burst of blue-white light sliced through the air where he had been standing seconds earlier. "Stay low," she whispered. Her voice held a tension sharpened by urgency, but beneath it ran a protective instinct stronger than fear. Elias crouched, gripping the column with shaky fingers. They deployed elite units this fast? Vern must be desperate. "He wants me alive," Mira said. "You're optional." He swallowed hard. "Good to know." She glanced around the column. The soldiers were spreading into a semicircle, preparing to push inward and corner them. Myra's body adjusted instinctively, posture shifting, senses widening. The faint glow at the edges of her eyes intensified as she assessed every vibration in the metal structure. "We can't stay here," she said. "Where do we go?" "They're blocking the ladder." "We're not going down." She pointed upward. "We climb." Elias stared at the tall network of crossbeams above. "Mira, I can't." "You can. And I'll be with you." She took his wrist firmly. "Trust me." Another burst of rifle fire sparked against the floor as they moved. Mira pushed him toward a diagonal brace, guiding his hands to the most secure grips. Elias climbed, gritting his teeth. Years of civilian work had softened him, but adrenaline filled the gaps age created. Mira followed directly behind, moving with silent precision. A soldier spotted them. Hybrid detected, upper grid. Myra's hand slipped past Elias, seized a fallen pipe, and hurled it downward. It struck the soldier's visor, momentarily disrupting his scan. "Keep moving," she urged. They reached a horizontal beam high above the platform. Elias crawled along it slowly, breath shallow, muscles trembling. Mira remained close, her movements balanced and fluid. Below them, tactical units coordinated. "Cut off escape routes. Target is climbing. Prepare for intercept." The soldiers began ascending the support beams in formation. Mira scanned the structure. At the far end of the grid, a maintenance hatch led to an off-limits emergency conduit, rarely used, poorly monitored. She pointed. "There." Elias followed her gaze. "You think it's clear?" "It's the only path they haven't blocked." A loud metallic thud echoed from the lower walkway. Mira froze. Elias turned to see the source. Director Keth Verne had arrived. He stepped onto the platform with calm certainty, helmet under one arm, his composed expression illuminated by the flickering lights. The soldiers straightened their stances immediately. Verne looked up at the beams, spotting Mira and Elias with ease. "Finally," he said, voice carrying upward. "The last viable specimen reveals herself." Myra's grip tightened. Elias saw her jaw clench with controlled anger. Verne continued. "Mira Ward, you were always the strongest. Adaptive. Intelligent. The perfect union of two species." Elias shouted back, "She's not a specimen. She's my daughter." Verne smiled thinly. "That's exactly the weakness I expected. Personal bonds make hybrids unpredictable. Dangerous. That is why they must be contained." Mira called down, "You turned us into experiments, not threats." "You turned yourselves into threats," Verne replied. "By surviving." Elias shifted to shield Mira instinctively, despite knowing she was more capable of protecting him than he was of protecting her. Verne noticed the gesture and laughed softly. "Touching," he said. "But pointless." He raised a hand. Soldiers climbed faster. Mira grabbed Elias's arm. "We move. Now." They crawled across the beam toward the far hatch. Verne's voice echoed behind them. "Ward, if you come down willingly, you live. Leave the hybrid, and you walk away." Elias didn't hesitate. "I'd rather die." Verne's expression cooled. "Then you shall." A rifle cracked. The beam beneath Elias shuddered, sending metallic vibrations through Myra's senses. She reacted instantly, catching him as he slipped. Her grip tightened around his jacket. "I've got you," she said. Elias steadied himself and nodded, breathless. "Go." Mira pushed forward, guiding him along the narrow beam until they reached the maintenance hatch. She swiped the stolen badge across the reader. The panel flickered, then unlocked with a soft hiss. They slipped inside just as a volley of gunfire struck the beam they had been crawling on. The conduit beyond the hatch was narrow, lined with insulated cables and dim emergency lights. Elias leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Mira scanned the path ahead. "We follow this to the outer rail terminal," she said. "From there, we access the old cargo shuttles." Elias frowned. "Those shuttles haven't flown in years. They only need to fly once." They moved quickly through the corridor. Myra's senses stretched outward, tracking distant vibrations as Vern's forces attempted to locate their path. Elias walked beside her, still grappling with the surreal truth. His daughter alive, hunted, and somehow more human than the officers pursuing her. "Mira," he said quietly, "why didn't you come to me earlier?" Her step faltered. "If I had, they would have used you to find the others. There are more hybrids still alive." "Yes." Her voice softened. "They're hiding, scattered across forgotten outposts. I'm one of the oldest. They look to me for direction." Elias absorbed that. His daughter had grown into someone powerful, responsible, shaped by hardship he could barely imagine. He gently touched her shoulder. "You don't have to carry this alone." She met his eyes. "I'm not alone now." Before she could say more, the conduit lights flickered. A distant explosion shook the corridor. The hatch they escaped through had been breached. "They're coming," Mira said. "We're close." They reached the final bulkhead. Mira forced the manual lever until the door groaned open, revealing the abandoned rail terminal beyond. Dust lined the tracks. Cargo crates sat untouched, cobwebbed cables sagging overhead. At the far end, an old shuttle rested on a magnetic dock, its hull worn but intact. Elias exhaled. "That thing will fly?" "With work," Mira said. "Good thing you're an engineer." He gave her a brief smile. "Let's hope I remember how." They moved toward the shuttle, but before they reached it, the terminal door behind them slammed open. Dozens of soldiers poured in. Vern stepped through after them. Mira pushed Elias forward. "I'll handle them." "Start the shuttle." Elias hesitated. "Mira." "Go." He ran. Mira turned to face the advancing forces, her stance lowering, eyes glowing with fierce resolve. Vern raised his hand. "Final warning, Mira. Surrender." She shook her head. "I choose my own fate." The soldiers charged. Mira unleashed everything she had held back for years. Her body moved like a streak of light, each strike precise, each dodge impossibly swift. She used the terminal's acoustics to disorient the soldiers, generating resonance bursts that scrambled their sensors. Elias powered up the shuttle, engines groaning awake after years of silence. "Mira!" he shouted from the cockpit. "Now!" She broke through the last line of soldiers and sprinted toward the shuttle. Elias extended his hand from the hatch. Their fingers met. She leaped inside just as Elias launched the vessel. The shuttle tore free from the dock, bursting through the weakened hangar doors into the open sky of Narration 3. Sparks trailed behind them as the engines strained. Inside the cockpit, Mira steadied herself, breathing hard. Elias turned to her, eyes emotional but steady. "You lived so I could find you again." She placed her hand over his. "No," she said softly. "I lived so we could save the others together." The shuttle ascended into the stars, father and daughter, united at last, carrying a future the coalition could no longer bury.